Greetings from Temecula, California. It's Monday. Yes, the start of the work week, but it's also National Coffee Day. And folks, if there's one thing that can get America moving on a Monday, it's a good, strong cup of Joe. I don't care what anyone says. Some mornings, coffee isn't a luxury, it's a lifeline. And today, we're going to drink it in and talk about a whole lot more than just your average caffeine fix. We're talking NFL because yesterday, Fun Day Sunday, gave us a Monday night doubleheader worth every ounce of energy your caffeine or coffee can give you. Thrills, spills, heartbreaks, and yes, a little chaos sprinkled in there for flavor. And who better to help us make sense of it all? Albert Lainer. He's breaking down the storylines, the plays, the what-ifs, the things your fantasy league doesn't tell you. But that's not all. Over in the MLB, the wild card picture is set, and we're going to slice through the stats, the matchups, the surprises. You give you the no-nonsense take on who's punching their ticket to October baseball. And just when you think your sports diet can't get any heavier, the NBA is here with a season preview. We're talking Boston and Golden State. Are they dynasties or pretenders? We'll examine the rosters, the X's and O's, the coaching battles, and yes, the trash talk that comes with it. So pour yourself a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's get rolling. There's a lot to cover, and trust me, you're not going to want to miss a second. From touchdowns to home runs to slam dunks, we've got it all lined up for you this Monday night. It is the Ryder Report, and I am Ryder Bullock. Thank you so much for joining us. We will start with Game 1 of the Monday night doubleheader. The Miami Dolphins get their first win of the season, pulling off a thrilling 27-21 win over the New York Jets in a back-and-forth showdown. First quarter, Miami got on the board first with a 47-yard field goal from Riley Patterson, capping a 10-play, 77-yard drive, but the Jets quickly responded, setting the high tone for a high-powered duel. Tua Tagovailoa found Darren Waller for a 4-yard touchdown pass to give the Dolphins a 10-0 lead. The Jets answered just before halftime with a booming 58-yard field goal from Nick Folk, trimming the deficit to 10-3. Third quarter, the scoring didn't stop in the second half. Waller struck again on a 9-yard touchdown catch from Tua Tagovailoa, but Justin Fields electrified the Jets with a 43-yard rushing touchdown to tie it up at 10 apiece. The Miami's Davon Akne then broke through for a 9-yard touchdown run to regain the lead, 17-10. Fourth quarter, both teams exchanged long field goals. Nick Folk from 50, Riley Patterson from 36, setting the stage for the game's dramatic finish. With just under 2 minutes left, Justin Fields connected with Garrett Wilson on a 23-yard touchdown, converting the two-point attempt himself, but Miami held on thanks to their balanced attack and timely plays for the 27-21 victory. Miami outgained the Jets 404-300 in total yards, led by Tua Tagovailoa, who threw for 177 yards and 2 touchdowns. Davon Akne added 99 rushing yards and a score. Justin Fields threw for 226 yards with a touchdown and added 81 yards and a score on the ground for New York, while Garrett Wilson hauled in 82 yards and a touchdown. The Dolphins were efficient in the red zone, going 3 of 4, while the Jets couldn't capitalize on 2 trips. Turnovers proved costly for New York, with 3 lost fumbles, giving Miami the edge late. Defensively, Jermaine Sherwood led the Jets with 10 tackles, while Jordan Brooks recorded 18 stops for Miami. Rasul Douglas had the lone sack for New York. Miami improves to 3-1, while New York falls to 0-4 in a game full of big plays and late-game drama. The Dolphins travel to Carolina to play the Panthers. The Jets play the Cowboys on Sunday. We do have some breaking news in that game, though. Miami Dolphins star wide receiver Tyreek Hill suffered a gruesome injury when his left leg bent in the wrong direction after being tackled along the sideline during the third quarter against the New York Jets. The injury, diagnosed as a dislocated knee, according to ESPN, occurred after quarterback Tua Tagovailoa connected with Hill on a 10-yard completion. Jets safely Safety Malachi Moore wrapped up Hill by the leg, causing it to twist awkwardly. Medical staff rushed onto the field and quickly stabilized Hill's leg before carting him off at Hard Rock Stadium. Hill will go further evaluation, and his status for the remainder of the season remains uncertain. So injuries have been the story so far. In Week 4 in New York, Malik Neighbors, the Giants, one of their bright spot on this offense, the rising star, the kid who was supposed to be the future, is done for the season. Torn ACL. MRI confirmed it this morning. He's gone. That's it. Season over. And let me tell you, this changes everything. You saw it Sunday. That deep shot down the right sideline from Jackson Dart looked like it was going to be another highlight. And then, boom, he lands awkwardly, grabs the knee immediately. You knew it was bad. You could see it on the players' faces. The silence in that building said it all. This is a Giants team that was already trying to find their identity. New quarterback, Jackson Dart. They do get their first win of the year. But it is a sad thing nonetheless. Mac Neighbors was becoming the guy. He set the franchise record last year as a rookie, 109 catches, 1,200 yards, 7 touchdowns. And this year, he was on pace for even more, and now it's over. Brian Dable says, we'll regroup, we'll support him, next man up. Yeah, that's what coaches have to say, but let's be honest. There is no replacing Malik Neighbors. You can talk about Darius Slayton, Jalen Hyatt, whoever you want. That's a massive drop-off. So where does this leave the Giants? Where does it leave Jackson Dart? Who's still figuring out the offense? It's tough. It's real tough. And I don't want to hear, oh, they'll be fine, because they won't. This team just lost its best weapon. Their season, I'm not going to say it's over in Week 4, but boy, it's hanging on by a thread. You feel for the kid. You really do. He worked his tail off, had a great offseason, battled through injuries, and now this. It's crucial. It's football. But for the Giants, it is a nightmare. Week 4 of the 2025 NFL season delivered drama across the globe, from Dublin to overtime thrillers in Dallas, as several teams made bold statements and others begin to stumble. We'll start Thursday night. Seattle edged Arizona 23-20 in a wild finish as Jason Myers nailed a 52-yard game winner after the Cardinals tied it late. Sunday morning in Dublin, Steelers improved to 2-2, outlasting the Vikings 24-21. Early games, Patriots rebounded in a big way, routing Carolina 42-13 behind a complete team performance. Falcons took down Washington to move back on track. Rookie quarterback Jackson Dart shocked the NFL with a poised debut, leading the Giants past the previous unbeaten Chargers 21-18. Texans pitched a shutout over the Titans 26-0 behind rookie running back Woody Marks' breakout. Bills stay unbeaten at 4-0, but penalties and sloppiness married their 31-19 win over the Saints. Eagles survived a late rally from Tampa, holding on to a 31-25 victory to remain perfect. In the late games, Rams into the Colts' hot start with a 27-20 win, keyed by 2 interceptions off Daniel Jones. Chiefs dominated the Ravens 37-20 as Patrick Mahomes threw his 250th career touchdown. Lamar Jackson exited with a hamstring injury. Lions rolled past Cleveland 34-10 with another big day from Jamar Gibbs. Bears blocked a late field goal to edge the Raiders 25-24, while rookie running back Ashton Gentry starred for Vegas in defeat. Sunday night thriller, Dallas, the Packers, and Cowboys battled to a 40-40 tie. Green Bay's first since 2010, Dak Prescott delivered a near flawless outing despite key injuries, but both defense faltered late. Next week features critical test, Chiefs-Jaguars on Monday night, Bengals-Packers, and a London matchup between the Browns and Vikings. It is time for NFL Week 4 Hot Topics. What a weekend we just had. Statement wins, shocking upsets, and a couple of teams making it clear they're built for the long haul through 4 weeks. We've seen some contenders rise, others stumble, and a few prizes shaking up the early season narrative. Joining me now to break it all down, our guy, NFL analyst Albert Lainer. Albert, great to have you with us. Let's start with Week 4. Your takeaways.
Well, before I get into Week 4, just wanted to make a little note. about Major League Baseball, if I may.
Go ahead.
Because both my teams that I'm a fan of, Boston Red Sox and the Chicago Cubs, made it to the playoffs. So I'm in a good mood, wearing my World Series Cubs hat as I'm speaking right now. So I thought I would just note that. But getting on to week 4 of the NFL on the Ryder Report, don't confuse that with the Ryder Cup. That's going on
correct.
right now. But the Ryder Report, week 4, I don't know if anybody from ESPN listens to this show, but I got a good soundbite for Get Up, First Take, and even Pat McAfee show.
Okay.
So all of them can use it as long as they credit me.
Go for it.
When ESPN does the documentary on the Dallas Packers game, I got the perfect title, 40 for 40. You're welcome. ESPN.
There you go.
So let's start with the Dallas Green Bay game. I'm going to say something that probably a lot of people aren't going to agree with, but everybody's talking about the end of that game, the fact it's tied. It's been the first tie in a couple of years in the NFL. The criticisms of the Green Bay Packers, and there's a lot to criticize. This is a defense that started out slowing down 2 good teams. In fact, 2 playoff teams last year, Green Bay Packers and Washington Commanders. Commanders have made it to the championship game. Packers have made it to the playoffs. They limited those 2 teams with good offenses to less than 20, I believe, less than 20 points. Last night, they gave up 40 points to Dallas. I said that this defense was scary. I think I may have said this on the show. Certainly I said it on social media. Yeah, it was scary last night. Scary in a bad way. Packers have some issues. I think this is a team that has to really pull it together right now. They got beaten by Cleveland. It was a tight game, but Cleveland's got really good defense, but they really kind of mauled that Green Bay offense. And Dallas's defense, though horrific, though terrible, they made some plays. So this is a bad look for the Packers. Again, the thing that you probably won't hear from anyone else about this game, everybody talks about the ending of this game and the bad time management of Green Bay. I looked at this today again, and I have to be brutally honest. My take on this end of the Green Bay-Dallas game is I believe this was a drawn-up play. I think Green Bay had a play like this for overtime because if you look at what happened, they had, 6 seconds left? All they had to do was kick, and they probably would have made the field goal and they would have gotten the tie. Wanted to drain the clock, and they wanted to make sure Dallas would never get the ball back. I think that's part of it, or whatever team they were facing would. So if you look at the moves, they did a running play, and then they did a pass play, and the pass play threw the ball out. The ball's thrown completely out of the end zone. That stops the clock. 1 second left. I don't think it was bad time management. I think that was deliberate time management. I'm not saying it was skillful or great, but I think this was deliberate. I tend to believe this was a play drawn up. I don't know when. Probably some old play they had. It's like, okay, when we get to a situation like this, we're overtime in a season game, this is what we do. And that's what they did. Because if you look at it logically, there's no reason for the Packers to go and try a pass play for 6 to 7 to 6 seconds left, because that's going to take time out. That had to be deliberately done. I believe this was drawn up. I believe the Packers knew what they were doing. They may not have wanted to get a tie, but I think that they did this deliberately and ended up with the tie.
So you're saying
I think it's a drawn up play.
So you're saying they didn't play to win. They played to tie?
Yeah. because this is a drawn-up play. I'm convinced.
Okay.
This is something in their playbook. This is something, again, you have to look at it. It's 7 to 6 minutes. 7 to 6. Well, 7 to 6 minutes is an eternity. 7 to 6 seconds left. Anyone who's watched football for years knows you got to kick, or you can't go for a pass play when you got that much time left, because that's going to drain the clock. And again, that's the point. Drain the clock. Got it down to a second. Should have been completely over, but they take it up with the timekeeper there. I think it's a deliberately done play. I really do. But the Packers are in trouble right now. Are they having the kind of trouble that Baltimore's having? Not quite. Baltimore's got real trouble. But the Packers are in trouble right now. That defense has to come together. They've got to find a way to get back to the basics. And that offense has to lead the team. Jordan Love has to be able to do it. They had a decent game against Dallas, but the reality is that they're in a bit of trouble right now. And Dallas managed to stave off going 1-3. So it worked out for both teams, strange as a tie would be. But that's essentially it. If you look at some other things in the fourth week, if you look at what happened again with a blocked goal in the Chicago Raiders game, Chicago-Las Vegas game, it seems like blocking field goal attempts and kicks has been turned into a weapon. And it seems to be a mark of desperation. Now, you look at the game I just mentioned previously. Dallas did the same thing when they were down, 13? They were blocking the extra point.
Yep.
And they ran it back for 2, and it helped stimulate the team. This is now a weapon. Teams in the NFL, not just the Raiders, the rest of these teams, you got to shore up your line. Once you go to field goal formation, that line's got to be tougher now. It can't be just going through the motions and just pushing. You now have to put some work into it, because these teams are trying to find a way to do this and wreck. I think last year you had some block kicks too, but this year it seems like an epidemic, and it's changing the outcome. You saw it last week with the Rams-Eagles game. And I saw then, I said, why? I mean, they had a block before. Why weren't the Rams ready for this? These teams across the NFL, that line's got to get tighter. Once you go to field goal formation, you got to have a tight line, and you got to put in some extra effort, because these teams are going to try to make, they're going to try to make disruption happen. And so the Raiders had a horrible loss. Barely got a win there. And the reality with the Raiders it seems like Pete Carroll's probably going, what can I do here?
Right.
I mean, I got a good runner now. Ashton Gentry, or Genty, I should say. He had finally a breakout game.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're not giving him good blocking. They weren't giving him anything, frankly, on the Raiders. And he finally got out. And he finally had a couple of touchdowns and got more yardage in that one game than he's had in the previous, 3 games. The reality is they've got a potential star running back. Last year you had Brock Bowers, a star tight end. You got Trey Tucker. You've got Jacoby Myers. You've got talent on that team. And the Raiders are losing. Something's not working with the Raiders. And of course, I'm wearing a Raiders jersey because I'm also a Raiders fan.
Yeah.
Something's not working. Something's not working. I know Pete Carroll's bringing his technique. He's doing his best. I get the feeling this guy's like, what can I do? I don't know. he's not going to say that to the press, but it's almost like, look, this, he's going to admit he can't turn the team around because it's still young yet. But when you've got this level of talent on that team, especially with Genty, and I mean, something, it was offensive line earlier, like last week. Geno Smith's giving up interceptions.
Right.
And, now the offensive line did a better job in this game. But he's still throwing picks. And so they lost the fluke. They could have won this game, and they lost because the Bears made a good move. That, again, blocking field goals and kicks has been turned to a weapon by NFL teams. And
no,
these
absolutely.
other teams are going to pay the price if they don't act on it. I think, though, the last thing before you get to the questions, last thing would be the Baltimore Chiefs game. Chiefs finally got an offense. They scored over 30 points. It helped that Worthy came back. You have Pacheco contributing. You have Kelsey. And I've said this about Kelsey. All you need Kelsey for is maybe about five or six plays. If they're good, if he gets a first down or he gets a touchdown, it's good. That's all you need him for. He's basically a good utility player. But they finally got their offense back. The question's going to be how far can they go? And the reality is they still don't have a great offense. They didn't have a great offense last year. But now they're scoring. So now you got to watch out. And Baltimore is a mess. The Ravens are a mess. There are people who are saying, well, they still can make it to the playoffs. I don't think they're in any shape to make it. Even if they go to the playoffs, they're not in any shape. It was really from the Bills game onward that I saw there are issues here. And this team just can't go all the way in the playoffs. And they don't have it this year. They just don't. They got beat up by the Lions. That offensive line got wrecked by the Lions defense, 7 sacks. And they got outbeat by the Chiefs. Chiefs came back. They got their offensive mojo back. So, yeah, it's an interesting week 4. And the last thing I'll say is there's what I call playoff game, meaning a great game, something that could be like a playoff game. Every single week this season. So it's been an interesting season because you have a really good game, one really good game every week.
No,
so
absolutely.
So far, in terms of games, it's been good for the NFL. It really has.
Okay. I want to throw you a curveball question, and I apologize ahead of time, but it's about a topic I think you're familiar with. Jerry Jones yesterday went on Football Night in America, and he basically said that Micah Parsons, doesn't fit on a championship defense. Do you agree with that statement?
Ask Micah Parsons. Packers make it to the Super Bowl.
Okay. There you go. We will.
Ask him that if they make it to the Super Bowl. Bring that up. You or some other reporter should bring that up to Micah Parsons if they make it to the Super Bowl. The way they are now with the Packers, I don't think that's going to happen. But you never know. They could change direction. I would bring that up to Micah Parsons if the Packers make it to the Super Bowl.
Okay.
It'll be interesting to see what he has to say.
Sounds good. Let's get into week 4. Let's get into week 4 hot topics. Undefeated showdown. We've got 2 teams left who are undefeated. The Eagles, of course, and the Buffalo Bills. When you stack these 2 teams together, head to head, who's better?
Oh, Buffalo. No question. Eagles offense finally got in some clear rhythm against the Buccaneers this week. It's the best I've seen their offense. They didn't have to rely on interceptions like they did in the game with the Chiefs. They didn't have to rely on blocking field goals like they did in the game with the Rams. All they had to do was play consistently. passing the ball, running when they could. They're able to get their offense working and score points. And it got a little close near the end with the Buccaneers, but the Eagles had just kind of gotten there offensively. Whereas the Bills, for the most part, have been consistent. They were able to come back against the Ravens in the first game. They were able to score well in the second and third, and they played a tight game with Miami. Miami played a good game against the Bills, but the Bills were able to do it. They've shown they're pretty consistent. They're able to score. They're able to put up at least maybe 3 touchdowns on the board. So far, they're fairly efficient. They're fairly consistent. There's no question the Bills are better than the Eagles. The question is, when are the Bills going to get to the Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl like the Eagles had?
Right.
That's ultimately the question with the Bills.
That's a good question. And with Kansas City kind of, I wouldn't say stumbling, but kind of trying to figure out who they are. Buffalo's sitting there going, hey, maybe this is it. Maybe we can do this. As the teams that they have struggled against, Ravens, Chiefs, and others are sitting back and way behind the Bills. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, somebody has to find a way. If the Chiefs make it to the playoffs again, they gotta be able to do what the Bengals did and beat them. Do it. I'm going to say something people won't like. I think the AFC is poorer because the Chiefs have gone to the Super Bowl. I think that the Chiefs are a bad look for the AFC. They're not a great dynasty. Just not. They're an irritant. They're an irritant.
Okay.
And I think that people are fed up with them. It's funny. I was watching something on YouTube where they were talking about, I think it was Green Bay Packers? Green Bay Packers. And they were talking about what teams, they asked these things, what teams do you hate for the fans? And some of them said Kansas City Chiefs, I believe, which was interesting because normally it's like the Cowboys or I don't know who else they dislike. Well, Bears, primarily. That's a rival. But, that somebody's got to do it to the Chiefs. Somebody's got to beat them. And I think the way you got to beat them, if you look at it, you've got to beat them defensively. I think that's how the Eagles won in the Super Bowl. They won defensively. First of all, they chased Mahomes all over the place. Second, they got interceptions. And third, they scored so much that the Chiefs weren't able to make much of a comeback.
You said the Chiefs are not a great dynasty compared to New England, for example?
Well, they're like New England in that New England played close games when they were in the Super Bowls. Yeah, I would compare them. I would say, they're not as good as the past dynasties.
Okay. Like
the Steelers, like the 49ers, even the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't see it with the Chiefs. I really don't. They're not a great dynasty. They're an okay dynasty, but they're not a great dynasty.
Okay. I'm not going to make you repeat yourself. You kind of alluded to this earlier, but I am going to ask the questions. The Ravens fall to 1-3, and there's already some chatter about whether this team is underachieving. Lamar Jackson's got an injury that we don't know too much about. Should we be concerned if we're Baltimore?
If you're a fan in Baltimore, yeah, you should be concerned. Definitely. Like I said, they're in trouble. Their defense is racking up injuries. And what you saw with Detroit last year is the reason they really didn't advance to the Super Bowl last year is they had a lot of injuries on defense, including Aiden Hutchinson, who was on his way to probably a record-setting pace. He was going to have a great year last year, and he got injured. But the Lions are back on track now. the Ravens, those defensive injuries are going to matter because you're in a conference where you've got Patrick Mahomes, who's a skilled quarterback. You've got Justin Herbert, who's another skilled quarterback. You've got Aaron Rodgers at Pittsburgh, another skilled quarterback. It's not that the NFC doesn't have skilled quarterbacks, but you've got a lot of experienced quarterbacks, some with Super Bowl experience. And you can't afford to have a decimated defense, and that's what apparently the Ravens have. And if Lamar Jackson is out, that's a big blow. Big blow. I'd say they should worry.
Okay, so this isn't something that can be fixed, or if so, how do you fix it?
Only way that I could see them doing, I mean, they're going to have, I guess, Cooper Rush maybe filling in. They're going to have to find a way with that defense. I think the defense, whomever you got left, those people, that defense is going to have to make plays. They're going to have to find a way to pass rush more effectively, get some sacks, get maybe some turnovers, slow down offenses. That's the best I think that can be done. Score enough points, but I think maybe rely on the run. Hope Derrick Henry doesn't cough the ball up. Right. You may have to go with a run-heavier offense. And that's what I see. You have to rely on that defense, even though they're having all these injuries. You're going to have to find a way to rely on defense. Get that defense somehow, get a decent pass rush.
Okay. Final question, Rookie of the Year conversation. Let's talk about the rookie, Jackson Dart. He had a phenomenal game yesterday against the Giants. Is he your front runner for Offensive Rookie of the Year?
Not at this point, because there's only one game. You need to put Dart through, I would say, when you start thinking about discussing someone like that as an Offensive Rookie of the Year, he needs to play at least 5 games and see what happens through 5 games, maybe 6. 6 is probably better. And once, if he has a higher quality and standard of play that he did in this game against the Chargers, which was good, but if he gets better and better as each game progresses, then you might talk about that. But you got to let him play, I'd say, at least 5 more games at this point before you can start talking about that.
Okay. He's the first Giant to win his starting game as a starting quarterback since Daniel Jones. And you look at where Daniel Jones is now. Do you like his future in New York a little better?
Well, here's the interesting part about Dart when he went in. What people aren't talking about that much is the fact that defense woke up with the Giants. That's why they were able to win the game. Dart did what he could. I think he ran in for a touchdown.
Yeah,
that was one of the things he was doing. But important is that defense woke up and they put a lot of pressure on Justin Herbert. I think if the Giants are going to win a couple more games or a few more games, it's got to be the defense. That defense has got to wake up. They got to make plays. And they may have to score, possibly. See if they can score a touchdown or something like that. They lost Malik Neighbors, so huge blow because he's one of the best players in that team. Very talented player. So you don't have much in terms of offensive options. So the question is Jackson Dart going to be like an Andrew Luck? Is he going to have to carry the team on his shoulders? But it was very clear he was Dable and the Giants were right to go with him at this point. Okay. They were right to go with him. That clearly was the case. It's unfortunate that rookies have to play, should be on the bench learning, but he had a decent game, pretty good game, and at this point, he needs the defense to do in that game against the Chargers what they needs them to do that every game. Wake up, make some plays, give him opportunities, and make the most of his opportunity. That's what they need.
Gotcha. Final thoughts.
My final thought is that the Steelers are completely underestimated by the professional sports pundits out there. They don't get them. They don't understand why they brought in Aaron Rodgers. They don't understand what his role is. And they don't get the fact that the Steelers' defense doesn't need to do a whole lot. But what they proved in this game in Dublin when they beat the Vikings is that all they need for Aaron Rodgers to do is get him a touchdown or two. And the defense can make some plays, and they can win tight games, and that's precisely what they've done. And the Steelers really should have been 4-0. They're 3-1 now, but they should have been 4-0. It was only a mistake in the game against Seattle that really eventually led to them losing.
Okay. Thank you so much, Albert. He's Albert Lainer. We'll be looking for our Outside the NFL and everything else that you do through various media platforms. We will keep our ears and eyes open for them. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for having me.
We switched from the NFL to the hardwood as we continue our 30 teams in 30 days. Also, training camps getting set to open around the NBA. The biggest headlines aren't coming from trade rumors or new signings. They're coming from the training rooms. Injuries and recoveries are already shaping the early storylines across the league. Victor Wembanyama is back and ready to go for San Antonio after a scare that could have changed his career. Deep vein thrombosis in his shoulder, now cleared, and he says the experience changed his outlook on life. Meanwhile, Kyrie Irving and Jason Tatum might be on the comeback trail after devastating injuries last season. Irving recovering from a torn ACL, Tatum a torn Achilles. Both are hopeful, both are patient, but only one, it seems, could be back on the floor this year. And then there's Tyrese Halliburton and Damian Lillard, two stars who've already made peace with their long road ahead. Both expect to sit out the entire 25-26 season after Achilles injuries of their own. When Wembanyama said it best, these recoveries are life-changing. Irving echoed it, saying the stars are leaning and learning from each other, calling themselves Wolverines, trying to heal like Marvel superheroes. For Wemby, the return is real. For others, it's still a waiting game. Boston fans are quietly dreaming of a Tatum comeback. Kyrie's return remains uncertain. And Lillard, he's focused on being 100% before even thinking about another game. Elsewhere, Miami's Tyler Hero, OKC's Jalen Williams, and the Clippers' Bogdan Bogdanovic and Bradley Beal are still recovering from off-season surgeries, but expect to be part of the camp or early season rotation. So as camps open across the league, the theme is hope. Hope that health will bring back the stars who drive this league. And if Victor Wembanyama is any indication, the comeback stories this season could be as compelling as the championship chase. So that brings us to the Boston Celtics. A lot of people going into last season thought Boston was going to repeat. 61 wins and 21, second in the East, and everyone thought they were on their way to another finals. You heard it all. They're going to repeat. They're the new dynasty. No one in the East can touch them, and then boom, Knicks, East semis. Tatum goes down with the Achilles. Season's over. Narrative over. Right? The window maybe not closed, but it's definitely looking smaller. Now listen, Boston's got a problem. You take Tatum out of that lineup, that's not a championship roster anymore. Jaylen Brown, love him, a good player, great athlete, but he's not a number one guy on a title team. Never has been, and now he's going to have to be. They lost Drew Holiday, they lost Porzingis, both gone. That's major. You don't just replace that overnight. They brought in Anthony Simmons, who can score, but he's never played a big playoff game in his life. Chris Boucher, depth piece. Luke Garza, rotation guy at best. This is not the same juggernaut that won a title a couple years ago. Now, Brad Stevens, my Indiana guy, my Butler guy, he's a smart guy. He's a tough cookie, but let's be real here. He's trying to fix that tax bill. I get it, but you don't go from Drew Holiday to Peyton Pritchard as your point guard and tell me you're still a contender. I'm sorry you don't. Pritchard had a nice year, won 6th Man of the Year, but comes on starting point guard on a finals team. I don't see it. And the big question, and I mean the big question, is can Jaylen Brown carry a team for 82 games? Because for years, he's had Tatum to take the pressure, to draw the double teams, to close games. That safety net's gone. Now it's all on Brown. And history tells me that's a tough ask. One thing I'll say, they still play hard. They still defend. Derek White's a gamer. He's going to give you effort every night. But talent-wise, this team's a step down. I got them fighting for a top 4, but they're not the favorites anymore. Not with Milwaukee still loaded. Not with New York getting better, not with Philly healthy. So for Boston fans, enjoy the ride, but temper expectations. Unless Tatum comes back healthy and plays like himself right away, this season's about survival, not banners. Key dates, you'll see him open October 22nd against Philly. Big early test. And that NBA Cup game on Halloween down in Philly could be a little preview of where this team really stands without Tatum. Our other team that we're looking at, Golden State, 48-34 last season, 7th in the West. They lost in the Western Conference semifinals, 5 games versus Minnesota. It was a tale of two halves for the Warriors. At midseason, the Golden State set at 25-25, barely clinching to play in position. But the February 5th trade for Jimmy Butler changed everything. So, off-season recap, they re-signed Quentin Post, Guy Santos, team option exercised. Kevin Looney is gone. They pick up Alex Tui and Will Richard, a forward and a guard in the draft. And then how about Jonathan Kenigma, right? Gary Payton II, Al Horford, all picked up in just 24 hours. So, Curry, Hyde, Butler, Green, Post, Pozdeminsky, Santos, Tui, Richard, all on your roster. And the X Factor is Brandon Pordinsky, the 2023 number 19 pick, emerged as one of the league's most versatile young guards. Post All-Star break, 41.4% from 3. April, he had 8 games where he shot 48.1% from downtown, 26 points in Game 4 versus Houston, 28 points in Game 5 against Minnesota. If Podziemski continues his late-season surge, he gives Golden State a dynamic third quarter behind Curry and Butler and a legitimate two-way presence. So the big question is, do the Warriors have enough around Steph? Golden State's offense rating was plus 13.4 points better with Curry on the floor, his biggest on-off split since 2019. Butler helped stabilize the attack, but when Curry sat, the offense sputtered. With an aging core, Curry's 37, Butler's 36, Draymond's 35. The Warriors must find consistent production from Podziemski and Kenigma, if retained, and the bench to sustain a deep playoff run. Key dates there, the preseason opener, October 5th against the Lakers. Regular season opener against the Lakers on opening night. Home opener, October 23rd against the Nuggets. The NBA Cup, they're in Group C. So they got the Nuggets, the Spurs, the Trailblazers, and the Rockets. Then Christmas Day against the Mavericks. Rivalry week on the 22nd. Against the Mavericks, and then the 24th of January against the Timberwolves. So our outlook for Golden State, championship DNA, top 10 defense, aging stars, limited depth. If Curry stays healthy and Butler's leadership continues to elevate the group, Golden State remains a legitimate Western Conference contender, but any major injury or lack of support scoring could cause the window fast. And listen, I like Golden State because I like Al Horford. I like this pickup. He's a pro's pro. He's smart. He is got rings. He's tough. He's a winner. And he's been around great organizations, Boston, Philly, Atlanta, and he's done everything you could ask a big man in today's game. But let's get real here. He's going to be 39 years old. We're not talking about a guy in his prime. We're talking about a guy who was thinking about retirement 2 weeks ago. You're telling me he's now the starting center for a team that's supposed to make a championship run? That's a lot to ask. Now, I get what Golden State is doing. They want to get a high IQ big, someone who can pass, space the floor, defend multiple positions. He fits perfectly with that. You put him next to Curry, Butler, Draymond, he's going to know where to be. He's going to hit the corner three. He's going to make the right rotation. But let's not kid ourselves. This is a team that's hanging on to that window by the fingertips. Steph's 37, Butler's 36, Draymond's 35. Now Horford's 39. This is the NBA equivalent of the 2000 Yankees. Veteran group, big names, but the question is, can they make it through 82 games and still have gas left in the tank come May and June? It's a good signing if you get him to the position postseason healthy. That's the key. If he's playing 20, 25 minutes a night, managed properly, I think it's a really smart move. But if they're expecting 30 minutes, 70 games, no shot. So yeah, it makes sense. It's logical. It's smart basketball. But let's stop acting like they just signed 2018 Al Horford. This is a savvy veteran move, not a game changer. The Warriors still need Jonathan Kuminga back. They still need young legs. They need energy around those guys. So it's the right move for what they are, but don't go telling me this puts them over the top. It just keeps the window open. Now I want to talk about Gary Payton, the second going back to the Warriors. This is one of those comfort food moves. It's not flashy, it's not headline grabbing, but it's kind of a move that makes sense for a team that knows who it is. Now look, Gary Payton II is not going to fill up a box score. He's not dropping 20 a night. He's not hitting 5 threes. But you know what he does do? He plays defense. He competes. He plays with energy. And on a team with Curry, Butler, and Draymond, guys who know how to win, you need those glue guys. Guys who don't need the ball. Guys who do the dirty work. And Peyton's that guy. Now, let's not kid ourselves. He's older, too. He's had injuries. And last year, his defense metrics weren't elite. You saw that 110 defensive rating. That's not what you want from a so-called stopper, but still, he's one of the few guys Steve Kerr trusts to guard elite scorers. You throw him on Shea, Jay, Anthony Edwards, he's going to make them work. In the playoffs, that matters. The key here is role. He's not 25-a-minute night guy anymore. He's a matchup piece. You use him when you need a jolt, when you need defense, when you need energy. He's not going to fix everything. He's a tool in the box. And don't underestimate this. Steph Curry loves playing with him. They have chemistry. Curry's talked about it. He knows where to be, how to screen, how to set Steph up. That's a big deal. You can't just throw anyone next to Curry and expect it to click. Ask the Warriors how that worked with Jordan Poole. So, yeah, you bring Peyton back. You give him a couple years. You keep that locker room strong. He's a good culture guy. He's beloved in the Bay, and he knows the system. But, again, let's not overstate it. This isn't some big-time move that changes the balance of power. It's a depth move. It's a smart move. It's a Warriors move. They're doubling down on continuity, on experience, on trust. So, great signings. Warriors finally making moves in off-season free agency. And we will see if it pays off come June. We move to the college gridiron where chaos reigned this weekend. 4 top 10 teams went down, and the ripple effects across the AP poll were massive. At the top, it's still Ohio State holding strong. The Buckeyes remain number 1 for the 5th straight week after a road win at Washington, but their lead is shrinking. They picked up 46 first-place votes, down 6 from last week, and the margin over number 2 is the tightest we've seen since the postseason. That number 2 team is the Oregon Ducks. Fresh off a double overtime thriller at Penn State, Oregon grabs 16 first-place votes, a big jump, and climbs to its highest ranking since being number 1 last season. Miami slides 1 spot to number 3 after an idle week, and at number 4, a huge leap, Ole Miss, earning their highest ranking since 2015 after knocking off LSU. Oklahoma rounds out the top 5. The rest of the top 10, Texas A&M at 6, Penn State at 7, Indiana at 8, Texas at 9, Alabama back in the top 10 for the first time since opening week after stunning Georgia in Athens and ending the Bulldogs' 33-game home streak. Speaking of Georgia, they tumbled to number 12, their lowest ranking in nearly 5 years. LSU falls to 13 after the loss to Ole Miss, and it's the first time since 2016 that 3 top 5 teams lost in the same week. One of the biggest surprises, Virginia. The Cavaliers upset Florida State and now enter the poll at number 24, their first top 25 appearance in 6 years. Florida State drops 10 spots to number 18 in what's been a roller coaster season for the Seminoles. Arizona State sneaks back into number 25 after rallying past TCU, while USC and TCU fall out. So the big picture, Ohio State still on top but feeling pressure from Oregon. Ole Miss climbing fast after a statement win. Alabama resurging, and Virginia, one of the surprise stories of the season. So if you're looking at the mock playoff bracket, obviously the playoff picture is far from set, but we've got some interesting matchups if the playoffs were to happen today. First off, this is the beauty of the expanded format. You get teams like Tulane, Indiana, and Texas Tech in the conversation. You get meaningful football deep in October, but make no mistake, the big dogs are still the big dogs. Ohio State, Miami, Ole Miss, and Oregon. They're the ones with the inside track to the semifinals. So let's go game by game. First round, number 12, Tulane at number 5, Texas, okay? Tulane's in, right? Group of 5, darling. They've been scrappy. We had South Florida in last week, but a couple of losses puts Tulane in now. I have Tulane. A lot of other people have Memphis. Just Memphis hasn't done anything to really excite me. Tulane has. And but going into College Station, so that would be it. Number 12, Tulane, and number 5, Texas. Number 11, Oklahoma at number 6, Texas Tech. You talk about a rivalry game with playoff stakes. This one's got fireworks written all over it. Then number 10, Penn State at number 7, Alabama. This is fascinating. Penn State's got the defense. They've got the quarterback play. But Alabama, even in a down year, it's still Alabama. Okay. And then number 9, Indiana at number 8, Georgia. Nice story for Indiana. They've been back on track, right? 2 years in a row. The surprise of the Big Ten, but going between the hedges, Georgia, Georgia's talent, maybe there. So then the quarterfinals. So the winner of Tulane and Texas A&M would play Oregon. Winner of Oklahoma, Texas Tech would play Ole Miss. Miami would have the winner of Penn State and Alabama. And Ohio State would have the winner of Indiana and Georgia. So you can argue seeding all day. We will argue it for the rest of the season. But right now, Ohio State's the team to beat. Miami's flashy. Ole Miss is fun. Oregon's, nobody's talking about Oregon. I think they like that. So the bracket's great for TV, great for fans. And if this played out, you'd have 4 monster games in the quarters, and I love it. From fantasy to reality, the regular season ended with fireworks in Major League Baseball, and now the postseason begins tomorrow. Who will rise and who will fall? Let's break it down. In the American League, the Toronto Blue Jays, 94-68, the AL East champions. World Series odds to win the World Series, 11.4%. Why they can win? They have an elite contact hitter. Disciplined offense, depth in pitching, even without a clear ace. MVP candidate, George Springer. Watch out for Jeff Hoffman in high leverage situations. Fun factor, balls in play, enthusiasts rejoice. Seattle Mariners, 90-72, the AL West champions. Odds to win the World Series, 9.7%. Why they can win? Red hot September offense, deep rotation with Wu, Gilbert, Kirby, Costello, and a dominant back-end bullpen. MVP candidate, Julio Rodriguez. Watch out for Brian Wu's recent pectoral injury. Fun factor, a franchise chasing its first American League pennant. Anything can happen. The Cleveland Guardians, 88-74. AL Central champions. World Series odds, 1.5%. Why they can win. September surge fueled by pitching and Ramirez's offensive leadership. MVP candidate, Jose Ramirez. Watch out for offense regressing without hot streaks for Manzardo and Kwan. A fun factor, a Cinderella story nobody expected. The New York Yankees, 94-68, AL wildcard. World Series odds, 9.1%. Why they can win? Aaron Judge, the long ball king, and a deep lineup. MVP candidate, Aaron Judge. Watch out for inconsistent bullpen performance. Fun factor, rooting for or against the Yankees. October drama guaranteed, because who do they play? Well, they play the Red Sox in the AL wild card. Red Sox are 89-73. World Series odds, 4.7%. Why they can win? Under the radar bullpen, ace-level starter Garrett Crockett, and timely hitting from Bergman and Anthony. MVP candidate, how about Chapman? Aroldis Chapman. Watch out for missing Roman Anthony or off nights from the younger lineup. Fun factor, watch Crockett evolve from reliever to ace on the big stage. Detroit, 87-75, American League wild card. World Series odds, 4.8%. Why they can win. How about Scubble, who is in peak form? Depth in hitters and pitchers if they rebound. MVP candidate, Scoble or Riley Green. Watch out for supporting starters outside of Scubble. And fun factor, will the Tigers bounce back story defy history? To the National League, the Milwaukee Brewers, 97-65, National League Central champions. World Series odds, 19.8%. Why they can win? Well, they've been the best team over 6 months. Their disciplined approach, they're versatile hitters, they have defense excellence. MVP candidate, Bryce Turang. Watch out for lack of raw power in key situations. Fun factor, chasing their first World Series since 1982. Philadelphia Phillies, 96-66, the NL East champions. World Series odds, 16.5%. Why they can win. Star-laden lineup, deep rotation, and the loudest crowd in Major League Baseball. MVP candidate, Bryce Harper. Watch out for Trey Turner's timing and injuries return. Fun factor, the bank could be the loudest October party in baseball. The defending champion Los Angeles Dodgers, sitting at 93-69. They're the NL West champions. Their odds to repeat are 10.7%. Why they can repeat? Depth. Shohei Ohtani's pitching and hitting, seasoned veterans, championship pedigree, MVP candidate Freddie Freeman. Watch out for relievers struggling to hold leads. Fun factor, dynasty in motion with Ohtani unleashed. Chicago Cubs, 92-70, NL wildcard. Odds to win the World Series, 6.2%. Why they can win, defense, timely hitting, and Kyle Tucker's return. MVP candidate, Ian Happ. Watch out for injuries to key starters and bullpen depth. Fun factor, chance to rekindle North Side glory. And then finally, the Padres, San Diego Padres, 90-72, NL wildcard. World Series odds, 4.2%. Why they can win? Super pin, versatile rotation, potential October breakout from Machado. MVP candidate, Manny Machado. Watch out for volatile starting rotation. And fun factor, will the bullpen and rotation meet and get along in October? Tuesday's wildcard schedule, Detroit at Cleveland with a 108 pitch. San Diego at Chicago with a 308 pitch. Boston and New York, 608 pitch. And Cincinnati at LA, a 908 pitch. Here is what's trending in sports today. Bruce Bocce will not return as a manager of the Texas Rangers after 3 seasons, during which he led the team to its first ever World Series championship in 2023. The Rangers and Bocce mutually agreed in his tenure following a 500 season this year, the first non-losing season since 2016. Bocce has been offered a front office advisory role with the organization. Bocce, 70, signed a 3-year deal in 2022 and complied a 249-237 record with Texas over his 28-year managerial career with the Padres, Giants, and Rangers. He holds a 2,252, 2,266 record, ranking 6th all-time in wins. He has 4 World Series titles, the most of any manager in the past 60 years. Rangers general manager Chris Young praised Bocce as, quote, one of the greatest managers in baseball history, highlighting his leadership in historic championship run. Bocce previously managed the San Diego Padres to a National League pennant and the San Francisco Giants to 3 championships in 2010, 12, and 14. Possible successors include Skip Schumacher, a current senior advisor with the Rangers and former Marlins manager. The Minnesota Twins have fired manager Rocco Baldelli after 7 seasons, ending a tenure that included 3 AL Central titles, but back-to-back disappointing seasons. The decision comes after the Twins finished 70-92 this year, their worst record since 2016, and 4th worst in the majors this year. Team president Derek Flavley praised Baldelli for his leadership, integrity, and commitment, calling the move a difficult day. Baldelli, 44, compiled a 527-505 record, ranking 3rd all-time in wins among Twins managers. He won AL Manager of the Year in 2019 and helped the team snap its 18-game postseason losing streak in 2013 with its first playoff series win since 2002. Despite hype preseason expectations, Minnesota collapsed after a midseason sell-off that traded away 10 players and cut $26 million in payroll. The Twins went 23-43 after the All-Star break and 19-35 following the trade deadline. Key veterans like Carlos Carrera and Harrison Bader were moved, and the bullpen was gutted, leaving the team shorthanded. Attendance also declined to 1.7 million, the club's lowest non-pandemic total since 2000, reflecting fan frustration over ownership's cost-cutting. The Pollard family explored selling the franchise, but ultimately chose to retain control and bring in new investors. Baldelli, hired in 2019 to replace Paul Moltire, was known for his modern analytics-driven approach and strong communications. Flavley expressed gratitude for their partnership, but acknowledged the team fell short of its goals. And despite a dramatic late-season collapse that cost them a playoff spot, the New York Mets will retain manager Carlos Mendoza for the 2026 season. Team president David Stearns announced today. Stearns reaffirmed his confidence in Mendoza, citing his leadership and skills while acknowledging the season was tremendously disappointing and not nearly good enough. The Mets finished 83-79, tied with Cincinnati for the final NL wildcard, but losing the tiebreaker. New York entered the season with the World Series aspirations and MLB's second highest payroll, including a record-setting deal with Juan Soto. They held the best record in baseball on June 12th, but went 38-55 the rest of the way, missing the postseason after a 4-0 loss to Miami on the final day. Owner Steve Cohen issued an apology to fans on social media, calling the result, quote, unacceptable and promising a full review of the team's failures. Stearns cited three major issues: inadequate pitching depth, poor defense, and inconsistent offense despite strong individual performance. Injuries devastated the pitching staff, included Kodai Senga, Taylor Medgell, and Griffin Canning, while big-ticket signings, Sean Manica and Frankie Montas, struggled or missed time. The rotation's inability to consistently pitch deep into games overworked the bullpen, which Stearns tried to rebuild at the trade deadline. Mendoza, hired in 2023, is 172 and 152 over 2 seasons and led the Mets to the NLCS in 2024. The team will evaluate its coaching staff soon. Looking ahead, Stearns said the Mets will rely heavily on developing young arms like Noah McLean, Jonah Tong, and Brandon Sparat, but didn't rule out off-season additions. I know we're running long. I thank you for sticking with us. And we are going to switch from topics of the day to what happened yesterday in the WNBA. It was a dramatic Game 4, couple of Game 4s, as a matter of fact. And one team that is sitting and thinking about what they could have done better is the Minnesota Lynx. This one stings because they had the whole thing lined up. I mean, this was supposed to be their year. You go out, you win 34 games, franchise record. You get the 1 seed. You got home court advantage. You got the MVP frontrunner in Collier. You've got McBride. You've got Reeve, one of the best coaches in the league. Everything. Perfect. And then boom, gone, poof, like that. You can't make it up. You know, this is the kind of loss that haunts you. This is the kind of thing that when they look back 10 years from now, they'll be saying, how the hell did we blow that? You've got double-digit leads in multiple games and you can't close. That's not championship DNA. I don't want to hear about the injuries. Yeah, Collier goes down, Carrington's out. I get it, but you still had enough to get it done. You're up 13 in the fourth quarter, season on the line. You got to finish that game, period. End of story. And Cheryl Reeve, look, I respect her, great coach, but you can't lose your cool like that. You can't get tossed in a must-win playoff game. That's inexcusable. You leave your team hanging there without their leader. That's not championship behavior. You got to keep your composure. I don't care what the refs do. You got to be smarter than that. This team, let me tell you, they're going to think about this one all off season. They're going to wake up in the middle of the night. How'd we let Phoenix take us out? A team they should have buried after game 1. You had them. And you let them off the mat. That's on you. You don't get seasons like this often. You don't go 34-6 every year. You don't get a roster this deep, this experience, this locked in. And to have it all unravel like this, it's devastating. I mean, McBride said it. It effing hurts. Yeah, I bet it does. And now, you don't know what next year looks like. New CBA, free agency. Who knows who's back? This might have been the window. This might have been the shot. You don't get to just assume you'll be back. Look at teams across sports. Windows close real fast. So, yeah, great season statistically, historic even, but at the end of the day, it's all about banners, it's all about trophies, it's all about rings. And the Link, they're going home with nothing, another year, another what if. And in sports, that's the cruelest thing here. So no excuses, folks. You had it, you lost it, and now you got to live with it. Phoenix will play either Indiana or Las Vegas, who play tomorrow in a crucial Game 5 showdown with the Las Vegas Aces, with the winner moving on to the WNBA Finals. The Aces, who have been dominant at home all season, hold the edge in size, defense, and experience. Indiana, however, has had the perimeter shooting and offensive firepower to make this a battle to the final buzzer. Remember, I said at the beginning of the playoffs, watch out for Indiana. Everybody said I was crazy. I said this game was going to 5. I said they were going to beat Atlanta, and then they were going to take Vegas to 5. Here we are, Game 5. And now listen, Las Vegas has been nearly unbeatable on its home court, posting a 17-5 record while ranking 5th in the Western Conference in team defense. They give up just 80.7 points per game and limit opponents to 43.6% shooting. Asia Wilson has been unstoppable, averaging 23.4 points, 10.2 rebounds, and 2.3 blocks per game, with Jackie Young providing an extra scoring punch, 18.4 points over the last 10 games. Indiana comes in averaging 84.9 points per game, 4.2 more than the Aces allow. The Fever are a threat from beyond the arc, 4th in the league with 8.3 made three-pointers per game. Kelsey Mitchell leads the way, connecting on 2.5 triples per game at nearly 40% from deep. Aaliyah Boston provides the inside presence with 15 points and 8.2 rebounds per game. So it's going to be a must-watch Game 5 on Tuesday night, and those matchups are going to be incredible, and strength and weaknesses are going to be exposed. You know, Aces, right? Elite defense at home, inside out scoring with Wilson, dominating the paint, slightly less effective shooting overall than Indiana's opponents average. For the Fever, opponents, you know, they are deadly from the three-point range and aggressive on the boards. But injuries have decimated the roster, right? 5 key players are out for the season. We know Clark's out. We know Colson's out. McDonald, others. And then in their last 10, both teams are 7-3. That's the exciting thing here. Both teams score above 80 points a game. Aces have a tight edge to 86 to 82. You know, rebounds, right? Both teams above 30 in rebounds. Fever rebound more with 32 to 30, and dishing 18.5 assists while giving up 76.9 points per game. That's what the Fever do. The Aces, 22.2 assists, swatting 5 blocks. Opponents average 75.7 points. So the Aces' home court advantage, defense pressure make them the favorite in this winner-take-all showdown, but Indiana's three-point shooting keeps them in it. But without key contributors, the Fever will need a near-perfect game from Mitchell and Boston to pull off the upset. They've done it before. So we will see. We will, of course, have the recap for you tomorrow night. Real quickly, before we get to the final thought, that Monday night game in Denver has ended, and we want to give you the score of that game. Broncos won it 28-3 there. Give you some stats real quick from our box score. Bo Nix, 29 of 42, 326 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Broncos move on to 2-2. Bengals fall to 2-2. Here is tonight's final thought. You know, in the NFL's regular season, it's not just about winning or losing. Sometimes it's about tying. Yes, tying. That's right. A game can end, both teams staring at the scoreboard, shaking their heads, and realizing they just split the difference. Now, if that sounds strange, it's because it is. Fans aren't used to it, players don't like it, and yet ties remain a part of football. Why? Well, for starters, it's all about the rules. The NFL has changed over time more times than most of us have changed socks. 15 minutes, 10 minutes, modified sudden death, guaranteed possessions. Each tweak designed to make the game fairer, more exciting, and frankly, safer. And yet, no matter what the league does, the tie refuses to disappear. Consider the math. If both teams are even after 10 minutes of overtime, that's it. That's the score. Everyone walks away with half a win, half a loss, and a reminder that sometimes football, like life, refuses to give a clear answer. Historically, it's rare. Since 1974, only 30 regular season games have ended in a tie. The Packers, ever the team with a knock for history, hold the league. They've been a part of 7 of them. That includes last night against the Cowboys. The Cowboys and the Packers gave fans exactly what they didn't know they wanted, a 40-40 tie, high-scoring, thrilling, and yet tied. Some will argue that ties are unsatisfying. Some will argue that they're part of the game. Either way, they exist because the NFL values the balance between competition and safety. And in a sport where everything is measured in inches and split seconds, sometimes the fairest result is neither a win nor a loss, but a tie. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is football in its truest, strangest form. That'll do it for me on this Monday night. Till next time, Ryder Bullock reporting. Thank you for your time, and thank you for letting me share mine.